Look, Barn, I know you're still a little mad at me, but I want you to know that if I had to have someone hanging next to me, I'm glad it's you.
I guess switching them tests didn't turn out much like I planned, huh, Fred?
Hey, got any lemon?
Check in the back. Gee, why can't business be this good every day? Story of my life. I'm a loser.
No, you're not.
What, this makes me a winner?
No, but you're the best friend a guy ever had, and that makes you a winner in my book, pal. Me, I'm just a big jerk.
Everybody loves you, Fred. Except, of course, for this lynch mob.
Oh, Barn.
Oh, Fred.
Welcome to part 2 of our Flintstones episode. But before we go into real talk, it's time for PP, our patron pitch. This is where we let our patrons know what they can expect on their exclusive patron feed. And we'll also let non-patrons know what they're missing out on. So, as you would expect, a lot of stuff doesn't make it into our episodes, the main feed. That means that there's plenty of stuff to go into the cutting room segments. That's the first thing you have available to you, all patrons, starting from the $1 tier, the Travoltis. Maybe Alex sang the entire B-52 song. Maybe not. One way to find out. If he did, it's on the Patreon channel. You also get access to all our bonus episodes. This month, we have 2 of them, because we have a Christmas episode, as we like to do, which will be on the second Black Christmas movie. We did the original last Christmas. This Christmas, we're doing the remake with Ramona Flowers, Lacey Chabert, and Harry the Spy.
And Ben Shapiro.
And Ben Shapiro, yes. And then our second bonus episode is the one that's picked by patrons. So this is from Jamie Russell. He's making us watch the movie Harold and Maude. Alex, are you familiar with this classic?
I'm familiar in the sense that I know it's a massive blind spot for me, so I'm fired up.
Yeah, I know one thing about the movie, but I'm not going to tell you about it until after we watch it and discuss it. We already recorded the Black Christmas episode because we're trying to be very proactive about our December schedule. Harold Maude, not yet. So that is dropping later this month. Now, if you want more content, of course, you move up a tier. So then there's the Winonis. $3, and that gives you access to our pre-recording notes. That gives you access to our QVRs. This month we're doing the final dual QVR of the season. We're gonna have more next year, but this is the one that closes the leftovers of the patron takeover. We're doing a dual QVR demanded by John Amenta from The Pint, and he wants us to watch the movie Ravenous. So keep an eye out on our YouTube channel and our Patreon channel for that. And then, of course, we have Contrarians After Hours. That's the spin-off show where we tell you about other things that we're watching, that we're reading, that we're listening to, that we're playing. Alex, what are you bringing to Contrarians After Hours this time?
Well, Julio, recently I finally was able to cross off my list of shit to do. I saw Sky Ferreira in concert. I know her name's Sky Ferreira. I don't know why. Somehow in my mind I got it with Sky Fiera, so I go back and forth sometimes. So if I mispronounce her name, just understand I know what's what.
Do you ever call Guy Fieri Guy Ferreira?
I think that might be it. I mix them up. Because if you've ever seen Sky Ferreira and Guy Fieri, they look exactly alike, and it's really easy to confuse them.
And they're both in the Green Inferno, so...
Wasn't ready for that. Yeah, man. I'm a huge Sky Ferreira fan. Finally saw her in concert, and it was not without its drama. So I look forward to regaling y'all with the story. For those that don't know, though, also the part of the backstory is it had been 10 years since she played in Austin. She doesn't tour that often. She hasn't released new music in a while. She's been in this decade-long contractual battle with Columbia Records, and she's an interesting cat as it is. And there was it couldn't have gone easy, I should say. It was kind of the payoff to finally seeing her of like the issues that came with it. So I will go into depth on my recent experience seeing Sky Ferreira in concert and how now I'm happy because it's off the list.
I look forward to finding out if you got her to sign your copy of Baby Driver.
Oh, God. I'm not even going to throw it over to you in a pleasant way now. Just say what you're going to talk about.
Alex, I also went on an adventure last weekend, and that is I drove to Dallas to attend the premiere of the movie Vice Mayors, which is not available to anybody right now, but as soon as it is, I guess I'll let you know. I'll let everybody know, because that's a movie that our friend Corey Ari, the man behind all our videos, he wrote it, he stars in it, and if you've been with us for a while, we recorded a little thing that's supposed to play in the background. It's like a commercial for, what was it? Mattresses? Body bags, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, he told me about it. I went. I made the trek to Dallas. It's kind of a long drive, but I'll tell you, it was worth it. And I'll tell you about the premiere. I'll tell you a little bit about the movie and my adventures there. Just to round it up, I'll also tell you about another kind of indie movie that has also a Contrarians connection, and that is The Wolf of Snow Hollow, which is Jim Cummings' follow-up to Thunder Road. We did Thunder Road on the Patreon channel last year, I want to say. Also requested by Jamie Russell. And I came out of that movie with many opinions, and one of those was that I needed to watch more Jim Cummings stuff. So this is his second movie. I watched it. I also have opinions about it, so I will share them with you. It was free on Tubi, so it was an easy watch. So that's it. The Wolf of Snow Hollow, Weismere, Sky Fiera. Now I'm doing it. Sky Ferreira. And maybe Guy Fieri. Who knows? Who knows what happened when Alex went to that show?
We go places on Patreon.
Yes. Yeah. That's all on the after hours. And then if you want to be part of that elite group that determines what some of our episodes are here and on the Patreon channel, that's what the $5 tiers, the Embries, and the $10 tier, the GADs, are for. Just go to patreon.com/ContrarianPrime, look at what the options are, see how you would like to support the show, and join the Contrarian supplements. You'll have a good time.
$1, $3, $5, and $10 are respective tiers. $1 gets you in on the ground floor, gets you access to the things Hulu's outlined, plus our Patreon exclusive miniseries, be it the Rock John Cena mega series we did, or our Lindsay Lohan career retrospective. And also, as we've outlined previously, we've got our goals that we're looking to reach. And once we reach said goals of patrons, we'll be rolling out some new patron exclusive mini series to all of our current patrons. We love y'all dearly. Thank you so much for taking the plunge. And as I like to say, we are always reviewing and accepting new applications. So head on over, throw us a buck, take a look around, and let us know what you think. We have the chat on there too on our Patreon. That's always fun to go back and forth with our friends there. So, all right, Julio, you mentioned Tubi. I assume that's also how you watched the Flintstones.
Please carve all answers with a well-sharpened number 2 chisel.
So many. You type the Flintstones and you get this Flintstones, you get Viva Rock Vegas, you get, I think, 3 separate cartoons. Tubi's got the Flintstones franchise on it.
Yeah, I think this was first released on Blu-ray within the past 10 years, but the version on Tubi is the legit HD rip of it. It looks like it's direct from the film as well. So good shit. I recommend, if you want to watch the Flintstones, at least in America, without paying for it, you can head on over to our friends at Tubi. Now, the Flintstones wastes beloved source material and imaginative production design on a tepid script that plunks Bedrock's favorite family into a cynical story awash with lame puns. That is the critical consensus on Rotten Tomatoes. As I mentioned, Siskel and Ebert both gave this a thumbs down. However, Ebert's review, he gave it 2.5 stars, and he's on a scale of 4. So
once again, highlighting the problem with the Tomatometer.
Siskel gave it 1.5 stars. They both mentioned that the main storyline was for an adult film and that the children wouldn't understand, this being embezzlement, mother-in-law problems, office politics, extramarital affairs.
Halle Berry being too hot.
Yeah. Multiple Golden Raspberry nominations. We'll run these down real quick before we get to your positive critics quotes, Julio. So this was the year Color of Night won Worst Picture.
Is that the Bruce Willis movie?
Bruce Willis and Jane March, yeah. All right, so the Flintstones nominations included Rosie O'Donnell and Elizabeth Taylor for Worst Supporting Actress, which I don't agree with.
Man, Hollywood royalty is not safe.
It won Worst Screenplay, where they actually listed out all the 30-plus writers that in the 10 years it was in production hell got a writing credit, I should say. Although Jim Genuine and Stephen E. DeSouza were both credited as primary screenwriters, first build writer Tom S. Parker was the only, quote, winner in the film. The other 31 recipients all wrote drafts of the screenplay. So this is like, if I always wish there was like that credit in Freddy vs. Jason where everyone who ever wrote a script got a credit and it just like ran like a Rolodex down the screen. And then it was nominated for Worst Remake or Sequel, but it lost to Wyatt Earp, the Kevin Costner. I think this is, and this will serve as a segue into your quotes here, Julio. I think this is one of those fine examples that we come across every once in a while on this show of a movie that in its time was reviled, and now watching it 30 years later, it's like, man, there's a lot to enjoy about this. At the same time, it's not like we're unearthing some hidden like gem that people don't know about. So I'm curious what your thoughts are. But before we get to that, Julio, what positive critical quotes were you able to pull from Rotten Tomatoes?
So wait, what you're saying is that the Flintstones has been Elizabethtown decades later.
Yes, it doesn't. Elizabethtown doesn't have Halle Berry looking as good as this. Elizabethtown doesn't have Kyle MacLachlan as the bad guy in a kid's movie.
All right. All fair points. None of them referenced on these fresh quotes. Let's start with Steve Warren from Southern Voice Atlanta, who says, state-of-the-art effects courtesy of Industrial Light and Magic and presenter Steven Spielrock, and throwaway side gags that will encourage return visits, turn what might have been a yabba dabba dud into a yabba dabba doozy of a summer movie.
Yes.
You got two of them. Kevin A. Ranson from MovieCrypt.com says, barely there, but still fun.
Yeah.
Paul Trendall from Common Sense Media says, zany cave age antics, leaving too serious plot. Is it really too serious of a plot? I feel like I can't be objective about this.
I don't know. Because you think about like Full House and like, of course I'm blanking right now, growing up in the 90s. I'm thinking of shows that like were meant for like a younger audience, but still dealt with like adult quote unquote themes, that I don't think any of the stuff in this is too out there for kids to not at least grasp in like the slightest level. Because even still, they may not understand all the machinations of like what embezzlement means and shit, but just the way the movie's presented, it's like, all right, here's the bad guy and he's trying to set up the good guy.
Yeah, it feels like when people say that the Phantom Menace has a plot that is too adult oriented, you know, because of the Trade Federation or whatever. I get it in the sense that they're not saying that it's too complicated. What they're saying is that it's boring. You know, you've had 3 Star Wars movies that were about just very straightforward adventure, and then you get into politics on the first prequel, and it's kind of a change of pace that was not beneficial, I think, to the franchise. But here, it's exactly what you just said. You know, it's like good guys, bad guys. There's a lot of like fun creatures running around, and there's a lot of physical gags. So I don't think that there were kids confused by this movie or feeling that it was too serious. I was watching, I was like, this is such a kid's movie. It really, that's just for the parents, I guess. It's an excuse for the story to happen. Speaking of which, Karen James from New York Times says, while the movie may act like a Madeline for television-obsessed baby boomers, it works even better as a colorful playland that will appeal to small children.
All right.
I mean, it is for kids. It is a kids' movie, Alex. Now that we're in real talk, would you agree with that? That controversial statement.
Well, that this is a kids' movie? Yeah, this is...
Movie made for kids, which, paraphrasing Brie Larson's controversial statements a while ago, it means that maybe adults have no business judging it. Do you think that this movie is getting judged, like the people that are giving it rotten scores, that rotten score is reflective of people that are maybe missing the point that this is a kids movie?
Yeah, and also we've talked about this a lot in our tenuous history of the Contrarians. Like, there was a period of time there where, like, anything that was perceived as below, like, Howard the Duck immediately comes to mind, of just like, it's just dumb, man. And there's a place for dumb movies. There's a place for kids movies. There are bad kids movies, but like, it seemed like there was, especially in the 80s and 90s, this effort to diminish what that could offer. And you watch something like this and it's like, fuck, man, there's not anyone making movies like this anymore. Like, the movie like this wouldn't get made today. And obviously that's a massive benefit of hindsight. But I think a lesson to take away from something like this, and especially we always go back to Howard the Duck. It's just like, just because a movie's kind of dumb and isn't to what like your standard, what we talk about in that episode, if you want to go back, where they really fucked up on that was they said George Lucas presents, so people were expecting like Star Wars. But like, this is, take your little kids to the drive-in movie theater and, you know, get McDonald's. You know, I know that sounds so elitistly American, but there's merit to movies like this. And I don't know that that's gone. That idea that people still reject children's movies or want to trash them as like viciously as you'll find in reviews from like the 90s or late 80s, like I said. I don't know if that's completely gone. It's more of just apathy has completely set in, and ambivalence, because now most of the reviews you will find for kids movies do come back to like, yeah, I'm not the audience for it anymore. Whereas, you know, you can find some amazing Ebert reviews just shredding kids movies from back in the day. And it's just kind of like, yeah, Raj, it ain't, I love reading them because they crack me up, but it's like, Raj, it ain't for you, man. And, you know, am I shocked that Gene Siskel did not like the Flintstones? No, I'm not at all surprised by this. It's,
they can't all be Pixar.
Son of a Brachiosaurus.
I did not know that about Brie Larson, by the way. Was she referencing the Marvel movies?
She was specifically referencing, oh man, I don't know. I think it was when Captain Marvel came out and there was like a lot of hatred towards it from, you know, those people. That
okay, well, not her personally, but that idea that like those movies are for kids, they can shove that up their butt. Like that's
no. She didn't say it wasn't about kids. It was more about, man, it might not have even been about Captain Marvel. I think it was because
you did say paraphrase, so I'm sorry, I'm not trying to jump down your throat about this.
It had nothing to do with it being about kids. It was more about, there was a movie. It might have been Captain Marvel. It might have been was it? It was like an adaptation of a book. And Oprah was in it, and it was like a kid's book, Wrinkle in Time, maybe. I don't know, but it was I don't know. It got trashed by critics, and Brie Larson said something along the lines of like, "Well, this movie was directed by a woman. It stars women, and it's, you know, its point of view is it's very like female centric. So maybe, you know, all these male critics that are trashing it should just accept that it wasn't made for them." And it's like it was like a press conference or like some panel, something. It just blew up, and that's what. Yeah, I don't think it was for Captain Marvel, because that's what led to like a bunch of angry people like trying to boycott Captain Marvel and leaving like negative reviews and whatever. It was like, you know, the kind of thing that you can just.
So that's okay. That explains a little bit more about why angry men are so
it was, she was
idiots.
Making a point that we've made on the show before. You know, it was like some movies are just not for, you know, a certain audience, and but God forbid you tell a white man with a pen that he cannot have an opinion. And she wasn't saying that they can't have an opinion. She was just saying that basically, and actually the bigger point she was making was that that's why you need diversity in voices in critics. It's like the problem is that when most of the critics are older white men, then you just get that one point of view. And it's like, if the movie was not specifically made for them, then you get a lot of negative reviews that end up influencing, how the movie does and so on. So it's like she wanted more women in criticism, more minorities in criticism. Like all that is like sensible points to be made and sensible conversation starters. But of course, the internet is the internet, so they just took like everything out of context and used it and weaponized it, and it's like now you can't make that point without it getting blown out of proportion and engendering really violent reactions online, which, whatever, fuck them. But anyway.
So I guess just zeroing in on the point we're trying to make with all this, and, fair play to her with that, but like we do live in a different time now of there's so many movies that go straight to streaming, and there's already the built-in, it was all right for like, a straight to streaming movie. Yeah, it was all right for a Netflix movie. I think putting ourselves in the mindset of 1994 and being completely like subjective about this, objective, excuse me. Look, movies were, especially at this point in time, different than kind of anything else. You go to McDonald's, you know what to expect. You go to a 5-star steakhouse, you know what to expect. Movies, this movie was released, so The Crow came out 2 weeks before this, and it was released the same way the Flintstones were. You went to the same building, and you went to the same type of room to watch it. So, and that's where, I stand up for like Siskel and Ebert when people say Raj was too big of an asshole or too critical. Dude, every movie was fed to him the same way, and he judged it on the same scale. And there's consistency in that, and that's respectable. There is, yes, absolutely the caveat or the asterisk that, hey, Flintstones ain't meant for you, man, or like this is for a different audience. But the way movies were served then was just everything was presented in the same fashion, so a lot of people judge them using the same criteria. Like I said today, that's all wobbled because people are more conscious of movies being made for a certain audience. There's people make excuses preliminarily for movies now. Like I said, if it's straight to streaming, people have a whole different lens that they view it through, et cetera, et cetera. But, in the box office on the Memorial Day weekend of 1994, The Crow, Flintstones, Beverly Hills Cop 3, people just went to those, and it's just the movies. It's what it is. And so
it's a buffet.
It is.
Just take what you want.
Hilariously, like this tickled me pink. Beverly Hills Cop 3 came out on that Wednesday to try to get ahead of the box office juggernaut that would be the Flintstones.
It's an apt segue sort of into what I was going to use as a comparison point, and that is that you said there are bad kids movies that don't work, kids movies that you can't just say, oh, well, it's a kids movie, or maybe you can.
Something like Baby Geniuses. That's something I always think of. It's
that is just like bottom of the barrel. I was going to go a little higher. Yeah, Baby Geniuses that's a movie that uses it's a kids movie as an excuse to just be trash. And you can, well, actually, I've never seen Baby Geniuses. I'm thinking of the sequel. I watched Baby Geniuses 2, Super Babies, or Super Geniuses, whatever it's called. All
right, let's use, yeah, because that's like revered as like one of the worst, not revered. Yeah, let's use a different example.
Well, I was going back to Contrarians history, and you mentioned Eddie Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop 3, and I'm thinking of Daddy Daycare, right?
Good one.
It's a movie we didn't hate, but it's a movie that's a kids movie, and you're like, this could be so much better, right?
Yeah.
Given the talent involved, and given the it can be better. Now with the Flintstones, I think it's like if you start thinking of a more sophisticated take on the Flintstones live action, I almost feel like it stops being the Flintstones. Like what exactly, what is the better version of this movie? Like, I can't think of it. And if somebody can, then I guess kudos.
Michael Haneke's The Flintstones.
Yeah, like...
Fred has prostate cancer and is bedridden.
Darren Aronofsky is The Flintstones. Like, Fred kills Barney. And
Wilma gets hooked on barbiturates.
There is, I guess, there is a Pixar version of The Flintstones, but then it's not live action. And I think that when you translate it to live, maybe the lesson is don't translate it to live action. You know, it's just the specific brand of humor and the just the quirkiness of that, like The Simpsons, right? Like, can you imagine a live action Simpsons movie? And if they made it, well, is there a way for it to translate what the cartoon is without people getting pissed off, being disappointed? Like, I was thinking about that. I was like, who plays Homer? You know, and would it ever be as perfect as John Goodman playing Fred? No.
Yeah.
Because Homer is yellow.
Yeah.
Who plays Bart? I mean, you can't, you know, you'll find as this, it'll be interesting. Oh, it's interesting how they translated it. But in the end, you're going to get a whole bunch of people saying, well, that's not The Simpsons. Just watch the cartoon. Why did they even bother? Like, I think that with the Flintstones, I guess I've been delaying it. I did like it, Alex. I had a good time.
Hell yeah.
It was, I think it was a worthy endeavor because it was really rewarding, at least for me. And I think for a lot of people. Those people don't have Rotten Tomatoes accounts, I guess, but they just to see how they brought it to life. Like, you have this prehistoric world that they created as a cartoon. And then what does it look like when it's live action? And it looks amazing. It's a lot of fun.
That's something that really needs to be celebrated about this movie is they went all in on like making every facet of it like the cartoon and really bringing a cartoon world to real life, as much as they could with a movie set.
Yeah, it's it didn't like the CGI that it's here and there that it's obviously, kind of like it didn't take me out. Like I noticed it, but I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It blends, it gets you where it needs to be. I just thought it was so much fun to see that they built all this stuff and they really thought through the machinations, like the set design, right? The production design and how like these machines work and what the Kyle MacLachlan's contraption, like there's a catapult, there's like rocks being reshaped and the way that they do the tests with the chisel, it's every little detail that they had about this world. I'm like, yeah, that's why you make it live action. So we can get to see it that way and be amused by it. And I think that all the performances are on point. I think some people are more cartoony than others, but I think that that's also the way it is the show, right? Like in the show, Wilma and Betty are always more subdued than Fred and Barney. So it makes sense that Elizabeth Perkins and Rosie O'Donnell, they really, even though they get their moments, but it's not like fucking John Goodman gets to like jump up and float in the air a couple times. They don't get that.
Oh, now, Wilma, don't be silly. Your husband's a big executive. You can afford it. Charge it!
So I think that as a translation of the Flintstones, and again, not being a Flintstone connoisseur, but having enough of memory to be aware of it in its place in pop culture, I think that part works, and it works as well as it could have worked. I've used this argument whenever the Cats adaptation has come up. I'm like, that Cats movie, you can hate it, but it's basically what an adaptation of the musical would be. It's like people wearing Cats costumes, singing songs. That's, you can't get mad at a movie for being a reasonable adaptation of the source material. And you're going to get mad at it if it's not a reasonable adaptation of the source material. So it's kind of like a lose-lose proposition. You would think that people would be more inclined to just celebrate the fact that they got so much of it right here, but apparently not.
Stephen E. D'Souza getting his writing credit on this from the script he wrote, like I said, almost 10 years beforehand. He also wrote Beverly Hills Cop 3. So he had a good weekend there in mid-1994. And do you know how he ended the year? You should, because we've covered this on the Contrarians before. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Christmas release. I remember that.
Christmas Day brought $100 million back home. Not him entirely. I'm sure Jean-Claude got 70% of that.
Man, that
went right up his nose.
1993, Stephen E. D'Souza didn't see his family. He was just cranking out script after script, draft after draft.
Man, we're when we cross the certain threshold on our Patreon, we're going to be doing The Running Man, which he penned, and then we've discussed Die Hard in here before, Hudson Hawk. I mean, we're gonna have to add some more DeSouza here to the run.
We're gonna make him his special section on the Patreon, like his own collection.
Yes,
the
DeSouza collection. Yes, I agree with everything you said about this, and there is a lot of benefit to hindsight on this. When we're talking about kids movies also that aren't good, one of the things I thought of when the thing of, oh, this story, kids aren't going to understand it. Do you remember that movie Monsters vs. Aliens?
Yes.
I remember watching that and I was like, kids aren't going to get any of these fucking jokes. And it was all like, it was like Family Guy type shoehorned references. And it was like, yeah, there's some like body humor and whatnot in this, but kids aren't going to understand like the premise or get many of these jokes. And I don't feel that here. I know there could be an embedded bias because I like this and I thought Monsters vs. Aliens sucked. But you know, this is to me one of those kids movies where there's enough shit in there to keep a kid's interest. There's dinosaurs, for crying out loud. And then also things to make your parents go, ha. And you know, if you brought your grandma or grandpa along, it's like, holy shit, it's Elizabeth Taylor. It's Cleopatra.
Literally fun for the whole family.
Yes. And then the teenage son who doesn't talk to anybody anymore, is above it all, but is very into film. He does the Leo and he snaps his fingers and he goes and points. He goes, that's Sam Raimi. You know, so there's something for everybody here.
Who freaks out when the B-52s show up?
That would have to be the parents because the B-52s started in the late 70s. So that would... Rock Lobster, that song is from 1978. So that would have to be for the parents.
I think I promised it when we're doing the preview for this, but I did see them live, the B-52s. So there's not much of a story to it. Yeah, they came to ACL, my first ACL that I attended. So 2009? It's the same one where I saw Pearl Jam and Arctic Monkeys. And
awesome.
They were literally the first band I saw when I walked into Zelda Park, and they were playing. And I guess I hadn't made the correlation of who they were. You know, I just had the list of bands playing, and I just went to the one that was playing at the time. And I was like, this guy's voice sounds familiar. And then they played Love Shack, and I was like, oh, they played for like an hour. You know, it was like, I don't know, noon. It was really early in the day, but they sounded exactly like they sound in this movie, and it was fun. And I was surrounded by, you know, people from all ages that were pretty excited to see them playing live. And there was a lady with a pink dolphin balloon that just kept floating around above my head. It was fun. It was as much fun as watching John Goodman and Elizabeth Perkins just dance.
Waltz.
Waltz. Shake.
Do you have a favorite B-52 song?
Love Shack is the only one that I can name, like the title. So I don't know them that well. I just know Love Shack because that song is, I guess, so popular that it just crosses borders and goes around the world.
Rome is my favorite B-52 song, for what it's worth. I do like Rosie O'Donnell here when the B-52s are playing. She's supposed to be mad because she's, you know, really discontent with the relationship she has with the Flintstones, but she can't help herself from kind of dancing in her chair because the song's so catchy. It's good.
They did go all out with the, I was going to say the soundtrack. I mean, the overall gimmick of, oh, this is all prehistoric, right, from the opening credits and all that. But even the closing credits, I'm sure you enjoyed the music throughout the end credits.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember the alternate, but even they do Anarchy in the UK. It's like a reggae version of the Flintstones theme.
they went all in, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned Rosie. It sometimes gets lost that she, maybe not here specifically, but I always think of A League of Their Own. Like, she's good in that movie. Like, she had a lot to offer in terms of like an on-screen personality. And here is obviously very limited in what we're doing, what we're going for. But I think she's fun. And I think Elizabeth Perkins also, who's someone that we've talked about, a bit of an underrated actress. And I don't know if we got all from her that we could have in the long run. I guess what I'm trying to say is these people that are good screen presences and good actors seem to be really genuinely having fun with this. Because we've watched movies too where it does not seem that it's the most fun thing that they've ever done or that they're overjoyed to be there. And I think you have some fairly dignified actors in this movie, and they all seem to be having a good time.
They are game. Rosie O'Donnell had one of my favorite lines, or one of the ones that made me laugh the most, which is when they rescued them from the lynching. They arrive, and she looks at Rick Moranis, and she's like, "Barney, do you have to do everything Fred does?" It's good stuff. Yeah, I really hope. I guess what you're saying means that you were joking when you implied that Kyle MacLachlan felt that he was above this.
Oh no, he more than anybody, he shines in this, dude.
He's so good. And I mean, I don't think that I've ever, even on Showgirls, he was not bad. The movie is absolutely terrible, but this was just like, I don't want to be as dramatic as saying that he was born to play this character, but I couldn't recast it.
Oh no, it's so good. And like when he's looking out the window like menacingly and like devising his plan, he's like a bad guy from a Batman serial like back in the day. Like it's so over the top. And yeah, I was joking. I think especially for someone like him, you read over the movies he's done, and up until that point, Dune and Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks were the big things that he was known for. To take that to the Flintstones, and then on top of that, he's possibly the most over-the-top person besides John Goodman in the entire movie. It's fantastic.
I mean, now we're in real talk. Is he the MVP, or is it Moranis? Is it Halle Berry? I know you said John Goodman was your contender in Contrarians Corner, but
he's great as Fred. But like,
can you settle on a favorite?
Oh, for like the pieces involved and like what makes it up, it's definitely Kyle MacLachlan. Like, over the fucking moon about Blue Velvet when we did that. And I think he's so good. And just the idea that within a decade he would be the bad guy, chasing Fred Flintstone around and trying to frame him for embezzlement. It's just wonderful. And on top of that, like we said, he seems to be having just a ball doing it. It's one of those things. If I ever went to a Q&A he was on, it would be the thing I ask him about. Like, hey, tell me about the Flintstones. He seemed to really enjoy that.
How did you keep your feet so clean?
How were you able to focus when Halle Berry was your opposite looking the way she did in that movie?
Man, he gets a smooch. He forces a kiss. That's probably the most inappropriate thing in this movie.
Yeah, agreed.
He really is a bad guy. I guess we're leaving Halle Berry for the end since she's the reason for this episode. But I'm gonna bring up Rick Moranis again just because because we don't enough, and I'm not just talking about you and I'm talking about the world. The world, yeah, it is. I understand his reasons for retiring from acting, and that's obviously
very noble.
Yeah, and clearly, I mean, he could afford it, so good for him. It is a loss for cinema that he hasn't made any more movies because he's really funny. I don't know that he is one of those actors where I'm like, oh well, that means that I have to go watch every Rick Moranis movie ever. But every time I've seen him in something, he's really funny. So there's that, and this is another example of I was so glad that he was the one playing that character because otherwise Barney would have been maybe a little too much or not even too much. It's just that he doesn't have as much screen time as Fred, and he plays kind of like the really dorky character. So here's the thing, Alex. Just knowing that Stephen Baldwin plays him in the sequel, that is like the alternate, the bad timeline.
Yes,
where
absolutely.
You just
no disrespect to our boy Steven, but come on.
Yeah, we know Stephen Baldwin can be funny. We know Stephen Baldwin can be good, but there is.
Please see Fred Claus. The season is accurate to see Stephen Baldwin be very funny.
Yes, Fred Claus on the Contrarians list of holiday movies. Approved. Usual Suspects, if you want a more serious Stephen Baldwin, but not as Barney. I mean, that is you have to encapsulate that type of character, and Moranis does it without being a direct translation of the cartoon. Because you were right, you brought it up in Contrarians Corner. Like there is a little bit more of a, I don't know if it's just the voice or you have to alter some things in the translation to live action, and I think that Moranis brings. I don't know if his Barney's a little smarter than the cartoon, but he definitely there's something to him.
He has a neck, which that's always what I remember as a kid. Barney, he was the same width from his head down to his toes.
Yes. I think maybe it's that he has a backbone. I don't remember Barney having a backbone in the cartoon. Maybe he does in some episodes. I don't know. But he develops a backbone in this movie, and I think it's necessary for the plot to work the way it works. But he makes it work. I really like him. My thought was like, man, it sucks that there's no new Rick Moranis movies, and he's just really funny. His timing, the way he delivers his lines, it's great. I mean, Goodman is great too. Everybody, in the end, I have to, for me, the MVP is Rick Moranis.
Since I was just a lad of 10, I've had the very bestest friend. He may be big, he may be loud, so you'll never lose him in a crowd. But for my friend, the special part is what's behind his ribs, his heart.
That's fair. And I told you, I wasn't just kidding in Contrarians Corner. I did, laugh out loud when he's getting tied up and they're about to hang him and, oh, no, I can't break a 20. I thought that was just so funny.
That entire sequence with his snow cone truck is just gold.
It's a great bit throughout the movie too, because they don't show him getting different jobs. It's just at different points in the movie, he just has all these different jobs. It's funny.
Yeah.
The 2023 version would be 40 minutes longer, and we would watch him get all these jobs. Apply,
fill out the form,
the interview process.
Yeah,
and it would be every job the person interviewing him would be a different cameo, Jane Lynch or something.
Pete Davidson.
Yes, there you go. Going back to Rosie O'Donnell real quick, she did win an award for her performance in this that wasn't a Golden Raspberry. She won Favorite Movie Actress at the 1995 the 8th annual Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards.
The one that matters for this movie.
Dude, listen to the insanity of this. Hosted by Whitney Houston, first and foremost.
Fresh off The Bodyguard.
So in the movie category, to begin with, at some point in this broadcast, Montel Jordan performed "This Is How We Do It" to put you in the proper time frame. So the movie awards, favorite movie actress, Rosie O'Donnell as Betty Rubble in The Flintstones. Who was she nominated against, Julio? Listen to the insanity of this lineup. So there's only 2 other nominees, but it's like, what the fuck? Sandra Bullock for Speed and Sally Field for Forrest Gump. 2 of those are not kids' movies.
And she won.
And Rosie O'Donnell beat out Sally Field and Forrest Gump. For Best Actor or Favorite Movie Actor, Jim Carrey won for Ace Ventura. He was nominated alongside Keanu Reeves for Speed and Tim Allen for The Santa Claus. And lastly, the favorite movie went to The Lion King, beating out Ace Ventura and Speed. So Speed was the only movie to get nominated for all 3 categories, despite the fact that movie is a hard R.
What's going on at Nickelodeon headquarters?
Maybe there's some universe or Mandela effect type thing of they did the Saturday Night Fever where they re-released Speed as PG-13 to appeal to the kids who loved Keanu Reeves.
Who loved him from what? Bill and Ted, I guess?
Babes in Toyland. That is insane. The TV shows Home Improvement, Martin, and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Martin is not a show for kids. I love it. Used to be better, etc., etc.
You know, Barney, life's funny. One minute people are your best friends, and the next you're fantasizing they're being ripped apart by a pack of rabid wolves.
So, the Flintstones. We met them. We had a gay old time. How much do you think is hindsight? You think a lot of it is the enjoyment we got out of it is just the novelty of seeing this, and like this ain't There Will Be Blood, but it's a clear effort was made. I think that goes a long way with you and I these days.
In all seriousness, I can't say it got Elizabethtown because I hadn't seen it before. So I if I'd seen it and not liked it and then watched it now and liked it, then I'd be like, oh, it's the Elizabethtown effect. But in this case, I just watched it and it was fine. It's not, I mean, it feels dumb to say it's not a perfect film because it isn't. But I did have some issues that I was like, well, obviously this is part of that. It's not for me. It's for kids. Part of it. Like there's every time they went to a montage, I was like, because it didn't land. Like there's when they first adopt Bam Bam, that felt like they fast forwarded. Yeah. It's like Bam Bam escapes the adoption center, and then next thing you know, they're bathing him and they're cutting his hair, and then they're playing catch. And I was like, okay, let's settle on a gag because I want to have a good time with this idea that they just adopted a super strong kid, but it feels like it's like 30 seconds and then they're out of there and into something else. And then there's they have a montage when Fred starts getting a lot of money. They drop like, what is it? Is it rocks? the currency when MacLachlan just drops a whole bunch of money on his desk? Yeah,
it looks like they're like stones that are different colors or something. I did love the giant ATM, that one like throwaway shot of that woman at like, it's like the fucking board from Wheel of Fortune pretty much. She has to like punch the numbers in.
And then there's another montage when we see like the Barney jobs where like at some point he's like a test pilot or something.
Yes, the crash test dummy.
Yeah, like it's funny, but I was also like, oh God, can we just? At times it felt very scatterbrained, and again, I understand you're making a kids movie, so you're like, okay, we don't need to like finesse these transitions or anything. Just let's get to the next gag. But that lowers it for me. That's what kept me. Again, it's not like I'm asking for a super sophisticated Flintstones movie. I understand that this is just kind of like what it had to be, but it's also, if I have to tell you, well, this is not a 5-star movie. Why is it not Pixar? Then, I have to point out those things. Halle Berry, Alex. I don't want to get to rate this thing without talking about Halle Berry. Because she's not an actress that I generally like follow, that I'm excited about. I probably mentioned that when we did Swordfish on the show years ago. So this might be my favorite Halle Berry performance.
My God.
It is a performance, like jokes about how hot she is aside. I'm not going to say it's a layered performance because it doesn't need to be, right? Like they told her play femme fatale, and she nails it and she milks it as much as she can, and she gets some really funny moments. And then she has the moment of the turn and she helps Fred. And then I am with you at the end of Contrarians Corner. I appreciate so much that she ends up being arrested anyway.
Yeah.
And she walks away with kind of like this playful defiance of like, well, I was a bad girl. And then they take her away, and it's really memorable. Moranis is the MVP, but the most memorable element for me is going to be Halle Berry, which, funnily enough, it's why we started, why we put this movie on the roster. So it's good. Like now you revisiting it, you've had this in your mind for years and years. You're like, this is Halle Berry's hottest movie. Does it hold up?
I mean, yeah, she's unbelievably attractive. But no, she's great in it too. And in terms of like you said, not a layered performance, but having like the moral conflicts at certain points, and like there's just some parts where she will say something and then kind of look off and wonder if she's doing the right thing. And John Goodman reacting as any of us would in that situation too. Just kind of, yeah, exactly. And just kind of like, completely swimming in his head. And I do love too, just Elizabeth Perkins just sees her and it's just like, the dictabird, like your wife. Yeah, what about my wife?
That is something I liked, that it didn't become this thing where Wilma was suddenly jealous and they got into a fight or anything. She just took it as like, oh, yeah, you have a hot secretary, but that they depict that relationship as being so solid that she doesn't really think that Fred's going to cheat on her, Yeah. I like that. The movie is 90 minutes. It doesn't have time to go down that rabbit hole.
Like we said, this isn't Lynch or Aronofsky's Flintstones, so maybe one day.
Fred having an affair, just the graphic sex scenes between him and Sharon Stone. How did we not mention that her name is Sharon Stone?
Yeah, I didn't really find anything at surface level about like it's obviously Sharon Stone. I'm curious if she tried to like file an injunction to stop the release of the movie or something.
I mean, 94 is just a couple of years removed from Basic Instinct. 1 year removed from Sliver. So it was a very topical reference.
So the role was meant to be played by Sharon Stone as a joke, but she turned it down due to scheduling conflicts. So it sounds like she was just a good sport about like, there you go.
There you go. The last name's Stone. I mean, least she could do.
Well, I've been a very bad girl. But you have to admit, I was very, very good at it.
For the Latin America dubbed version, Miss Sharon Stone was renamed Agatha Crystal.
Oh no, we got the short end of the stick there. That's not sexy for.
Fred was Pedro and Barney was Pablo. So there you go.
Told you.
And then in closing, I brought this up in Contrarians Corner, but to give this joke its proper praise, I just absolutely lost it when Fred said, I got to think of something. And it's him thinking of his mother-in-law getting eaten by a dinosaur. I thought that was just wonderful.
Did you laugh at Wilma referencing the Avrock lady? She goes to open the door and she's like, I hope it's not the Avrock lady.
That kind of went over my head, but now that's tremendous.
They had a lot of fun. I don't care how many 30-something writers. Good. If that's what was needed to make it, that funny. I understand. If puns are not your thing, then this is a nightmare because they come at you fast and often. But I had no problem with it. I was like, oh, this is what we're doing? All right. Sit back and enjoy.
All right, Julio. So, moment of truth. Where does this land for you?
So it's funny because I was thinking 3 stars, and then throughout this conversation, it just inched up to 3.5.
My God.
The perfectly good movie that I would recommend to parents that don't know what to have their kids watch. And it's one of those, it's going to become like Howard the Duck, like Take Me Home Tonight, Here Comes the Boom. It's just one of those movies that's going to become an example of what we do in this show. And it's like, hey.
Defines our mission statement.
Yeah, it says rotten, and it's so much better than what that image conjures, There's so much more to dig there. There's also the fact that it's only 48 reviews. There's a lot of factors. There's a lot of complexity that goes into just telling you what the movie's strengths and weaknesses are. And, the score doesn't really do any of that. So, yeah. I recommend The Flintstones, 3.5 stars. What's your score, Alex?
I gave it 3 stars on Letterboxd. I'm content giving this thing a C+, like in the highest, the shiniest, most positive C+ a movie could get. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. Because overall, even if you end up not liking it, it's only 90 minutes. And it's a good time.
Yeah, it's and you will not see it again. It's not going to happen.
Yes. The official Contrarian seal of approval on this one.
Yeah. If any of you have watched Viva Rock Vegas, let us know because we're not watching it.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So we have satisfied the Halle Berry leg of this. Julio, what's next?
Coming up next, this is it. We close down our tab. We pay the final installment of our live stream for the Cure debt, the Tom Cruise tier, the highest one, and we reached it. So it's time for Jerry Maguire. The crowbar comes back to the show.
Hell yeah.
Have we done a Tom Cruise movie on the main feed?
Not off the top of my head.
I can't think of it either. I know we talked about him, we've referenced him, but this might be Tom Cruise's debut. If it's not, I'm sure that people will correct us and we'll correct ourselves on the actual episode. But Jerry Maguire, fresh, watch it. Might be the most Tom Cruise movie around. I don't know. Some people would say Top Gun, but we'll see. There's a lot to talk about. There's Renee Zellweger,
Jay Moore,
Bonnie Hunt,
Jonathan
Lipnicki, of course.
Is it Kelly Preston?
Kelly Preston, and Academy Award winner Cuba Gooding Jr.
It's what he won for. So.
It's what he won for. It's what we were too early in the history of humanity for it to become a meme. But if that had happened today, he would have been memed to death.
Oh, his acceptance speech, still, yeah. I'm surprised it hasn't become like resurfaced and used today, but maybe we can take that as our responsibility.
Yes, let's do it.
But all right, Jerry Maguire is up next.
That's it. Watch it. Be ready for it. Alex, let's get out of here.
Let's yabba dabba do. Welcome to our end credits.
Or as we usually call them, our perennial plugs.
We start off by giving thanks to the Festive Years who provide our opening and closing tracks. They kick us off with Last Stand and take us home with Summer of 99. Be sure to head over to thefestiveyears.com for any and all Festive Years needs.
Our friend and fellow podcaster Hans Rothgieser is the man behind our logo and all the art you see related to our show. Reach out to him and let him know how much you like that little tomato. His email address is mildemonios@hotmail.com and his website is mildemonios.pe. That's MILDEMONIOS. You can also check out his podcast Nación Combi about Peruvian current affairs and Marginal about economy. Hans, thank you for all your support.
For those interested in the regularly absurd world of professional wrestling, Joe and the boys over at latenightgrin.com have you covered. Tell them the Contrarians sent you.
And we like to close with special thanks to our social media team of Zoe Perez and Corey Ari. Each of the social media accounts we mentioned in the introduction look as good as they do because of their work.
So that'll do it for this episode of The Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong, and we will catch you next time.
How much money he makes a year.